Queen Camilla just suffered the most devastating, completely invisible demotion in the history of the modern British monarchy, and the mainstream media is completely missing the absolute magnitude of what just happened. If you rely solely on the polished photographs of state dinners and carriage rides, you would assume the Queen Consort is operating at the absolute peak of her power. But behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace, an unprecedented transfer of constitutional authority just took place, and the true power was entirely ripped from Camilla's hands and handed directly to Princess Anne. The entire conflict revolves around a single, highly classified item: the red box. This legendary briefcase holds the daily, top-secret intelligence briefings, unredacted state documents, and the literal machinery required to run the United Kingdom. Holding the keys to that box means holding the actual power of the sovereign. And King Charles just made the highly calculated decision that when things get serious, his wife is not the one allowed to open it. Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that subscribe button, and let's expose exactly how the Princess Royal just became the true shadow monarch of Britain. To understand why this massive transfer of power didn't automatically go to the obvious choice, you have to look at the crushing reality currently paralyzing the Prince of Wales. On paper, Prince William is the direct heir. He should logically be the one absorbing the administrative weight, while the king manages his ongoing health crisis. But the palace knows that William is completely maxed out. He is actively managing Catherine's difficult health recovery, trying to remain a present, deeply involved father to 3 young children, all while carrying the immense psychological dread of knowing the throne is rapidly approaching. Forcing William to also absorb the grueling, daily mechanics of the red box would absolutely break him. The king recognized that his heir needed a protective shield, so instead of looking down the line of succession, Charles looked directly across the table at his sister. The brilliant masterstroke of choosing Princess Anne lies entirely in a massive, historic irony. She is the absolute safest person in the world to hold ultimate power specifically because she has absolutely zero chance of keeping it. Because of the sexist, outdated laws of male preference primogeniture that existed when she was born, and was continually shoved further and further down the line of succession every time a brother or nephew was born. But that historic unfairness is exactly what makes her untouchable today. She possesses absolutely zero dynastic ambition. When Anne walks into a room to deliver a message from the king or review classified legislation, the prime minister and the parliament know she isn't executing a secret power grab. There are no rival factions behind her, and she has no personal agenda to manipulate the system because she can never be queen. She is the ultimate, trustworthy messenger, and King Charles knows it. But this structural elevation wasn't just a sudden, panicked decision by King Charles. It was actually the final, brilliant, legally binding master plan orchestrated by the late Queen Elizabeth II. In late 2022, knowing that her life was ending and fully aware of the chaos surrounding the family, Elizabeth initiated a massive amendment to the Regency Acts through Parliament. She officially added Princess Anne and Prince Edward to the list of working counselors of state for their lifetimes. This wasn't just a ceremonial honor, it was a lethal, constitutional strike. By illegally installing Anne, Elizabeth permanently and elegantly sidelined Prince Harry and Prince Andrew, ensuring that if Charles ever became incapacitated, the absolute worst people imaginable would never get their hands on the levers of state power. Elizabeth spent decades quietly training Anne for this exact crisis, and she hardwired her daughter into the survival of the crown right before she died. The king recently doubled down on this absolute trust by executing a massive, highly symbolic elevation that caught royal watchers completely off guard. Sir Timothy Lawrence, Princess Anne's husband, has spent 30 years being completely invisible. He never demanded a princely title, he never chased headlines, and he simply stood 2 steps behind his wife, supporting her grueling 450 engagement schedule without a single complaint. Recently, King Charles personally elevated Timothy to Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, the absolute highest rank within a system entirely controlled by the monarch's personal gift. He now sits in the exact same symbolic company as Queen Camilla and the Princess of Wales. This was Charles looking at the entire institution and publicly declaring that the silent, unwavering loyalty of Anne's household is the absolute most valuable currency in his court. What makes this massive elevation of, and so incredibly tense behind closed doors, is the deeply uncomfortable, completely buried romantic history she shares with Camilla's past. Back in the early 1970s, long before Charles and Diana ever dominated the headlines, Princess Anne was involved in a serious, deeply connected relationship with a cavalry officer named Andrew Parker Bowles. The relationship eventually ended due to complex religious protocols, and Andrew immediately pivoted and married a woman named Camilla Shand, and has carried the unique, incredibly personal history for over 50 years. She knows exactly how Camilla operates, and she has spent decades watching her navigate the palace hierarchy. Now, the ultimate irony has played out. Camilla finally secured the marriage to the king, but it is Anne who holds the actual, unyielding power of the state. The British public has completely rallied behind this new reality, and it was entirely solidified during a breathtakingly raw moment in a recent BBC documentary. While discussing the late Queen's funeral, Anne did something incredibly rare for a senior royal. She was brutally honest. She described the exact moment the imperial state crown was lifted off her mother's coffin, confessing that she felt a profound sense of relief. Not because she wasn't grieving, but because she completely understood that the crushing, decades-long burden of duty had finally been lifted from her mother's shoulders. That singular, unscripted moment proved to the entire nation that Anne deeply, viscerally understands the true, agonizing cost of the crown. She doesn't view the monarchy as a glamorous privilege. She views it as a brutal, lifelong sacrifice. The ultimate reality currently paralyzing Queen Camilla is that she has been completely outmaneuvered by the very institution she spent 30 years trying to conquer. She gets to sit next to the king at state banquets, she gets to wear the historic jewelry, and she holds the title of Queen Consort. But she has been fundamentally excluded from the actual power. She does not get the red box. She does not read the classified intelligence. She does not make the decisions that guide the future of the nation. She has been reduced to a purely ceremonial presence, while the actual, heavy machinery of governance flows directly around her and straight into the hands of the Princess Royal. Camilla won the title, but Princess Anne holds the kingdom.